Hey, welcome, sports fans. I'm Nate. He's Brandon. We are the St. Louis Syndicate, and we are here to talk football during basketball season. Brandon, we haven't talked since the Super Bowl, man. We're going to have some fun things coming to the Syndicate Nation, all 8 of them. Tell us what you've been doing for the last few weeks.
I'm getting prepped to go to spring training. We're almost to baseball season.
I know. Now, see,
I've
that's
been
what
watching
St.
some
Louis people do.
basketball, but for the first time ever, it's crazy. It's crazy to go and have a kid, and he's 15 months old, and he's going to get to go to spring training.
That's fantastic.
And I'm 41 years old, and it'll be the first time I've made my way to spring training. So the little guys out there living.
I hope he can remember it. Or if the Cardinals suck, maybe he won't remember it, and that'll be okay.
Yeah, I mean,
What's your take on the team this year so far as you're heading down? I'm sure you've been doing some research.
I've been trying to watch it. I'm excited. I know that we're not going to win a bunch of games. I get it. And I understand that, the best fans in baseball have kind of peed down their leg here recently because, they want to stomp around and be mad that we're not winning the World Series every year. But, there's something about the last couple of years post, we had Yachty and Waino and Pujols come back together for Pujols' last season. And regardless of what we did on the field, that was incredible, right? Because it was an end of an era, and it was, a team of 3 guys that did so much for St. Louis. And then in between, we go out, we get Goldie, and we get Arenado, and, we do all that sort of stuff, but it never really clicks. And when it's not clicking, but you're trying, that's the stuff that gets boring, to me at least. If we're just going to take a bunch of 22-year-olds and just let them go rip on the field, I'll watch that. I want a bunch of dudes that I have to figure out how to say their last name. We got this dude that throws with both hands. I send that clip to my wife. She goes, "What did he say his name was?" I go, "I don't know. We'll learn. We'll figure it out." I was like, I can't even sound it out. But we'll be down there and we'll be hearing a PA announcer say it, or, we'll be listening to it on KMOX, and, they'll help us figure out how to say these guys, names and where they all came from. And this is going to be the thing. And, part of what's exciting to me about bringing a new person into this addiction that I have to baseball is that, there's going to be some guys that get good.
Oh, yeah.
That's what the Cardinals do. Maybe it's going to be a while before we are perennially just in the playoffs and taking a charge at winning the pennant. But we have all of these top prospects, and a couple of them are going to hit. And, 10 years from now, when they're starting to wind down their career, and, you go, "Hey, look, you literally watched that guy in his first spring training when you were too young to even understand what was going on." And that's the magic of baseball.
Yeah.
So, I'm pumped for it. It's gonna be incredible. And hey, he's not gonna remember it, but we'll get some baseballs, we'll get him signed, we'll put him up in his room. He'll get older, he'll understand what's going on, he'll get engaged, and then it'll be like you were there when some of these guys that become the pillars of what our team is were fighting for playing time. So yeah, that's how it hits me. I don't know. Are you starting to get pumped for the season yet?
Yeah, man. We're from St. Louis, and that's what we do. We do baseball.
Yeah.
It's what we do really good, and I'm fired up about it. I love it. The history, the tradition. It's so much fun. I'm a baseball junkie myself. I'm 50 years old. I still collect baseball cards.
Yeah.
It's just one of those things, man. I'm hung up on it. I've got my son involved in it. My daughter plays softball at the University of Missouri. My son is starting his senior year. He's having baseball tryouts this week.
Hell yeah.
He's been playing since he was 3. So I'm fired up about baseball, softball in general.
Yeah.
As far as the Cardinals go, I'm really excited to see these young guys. They've been touting them a little bit from a best fan in baseball perspective, I do want to note that I'm really proud of the city of St. Louis for not just bending over and taking it. And what I mean by that is they did do what a lot of teams talk about doing, put their money where their mouth is, and they stayed away. I don't think that that's sustainable if we want to have a good program forever. I think we need to
Yeah.
go back to the field. We need to see some. But
Uh-huh.
the last couple of years, the Cardinals have made a conscious decision to not sign players that are going to impact results on the field. But they also have not come out and said, we're rebuilding. And I think that if they would come out and have said that originally, that the fans would have stayed.
Yeah.
They tried to pretend like that wasn't the case, and in reality it was. And so we have an ownership group that did not tell the whole truth to the fan base that's supporting them. And so the fans basically said, screw you, stayed away, and here we are. Okay, so we're past that point. Moselak's gone.
And
It's
that was the
time to
real
come back.
key. You can't do a rebuild with the same guy. So they
No.
couldn't come out. Like, what are they going to say? The owner's going to come out and say, we're going to do a rebuild, but we're just
Yeah.
going to, like, I'm not ready to turn over the leadership of the team. It's one of the things
Yeah.
that, as we get to the football part of it, of talking about, it's about working as you can't have leadership there that is not excited about doing the rebuild.
Yeah.
And so now
That's
we got
exactly right.
ourselves a guy who's excited about doing a rebuild.
So I think the bottom line is it's time for the fans to come back and help support it so that when these younger guys start doing what we think they're going to do, we can get some free agents to supplement that will put us in the postseason. We can't grow it all from scratch. We're not
No,
that kind of team. No team is, right? You
but you
have
can
to
build a
supplement with
core.
veterans. Yeah. So the idea behind this should be to now we need to come back, support the team, and give them the resources they need from a financial perspective to, in a year, 18 months, 2 years, build. Now, we say that and they're going to go on strike and then everybody's going to get pissed off again.
Yeah.
But,
That's
that
not
should be
St.
the
Louis
trajectory.
specific.
Yeah.
Everybody's going to be at the same level of pissed off.
Yep. Absolutely. Absolutely. So that's my thoughts. Here's a spring training story for you.
Yeah.
I've only been to spring training one time in my life, right? I went in 2004. In 2004 was, Albert has been there now 3 years at this point, and our catcher is Mike Matheny, and we've got Edgar Renneria and Scott Rowland, and the team is starting on the upward trajectory. We just traded, I think, in the offseason for Edmonds, and so we've got a lot of
Yeah,
really
that sounds
positive
right.
things happening.
Yeah.
The things grow, and so it was a really exciting time to be there, and these guys were young and hungry, right? So think about, what you just described.
Yeah.
These guys were young and hungry. There was a kid there that there was 2 kids there. One of them I didn't get to see much of because Matheny was running it, but he was the backup catcher there named Molina, who took over that year
Yeah.
and changed the name of the game. And there was another kid there that had just gotten traded for JD Drew.
Yeah.
And he'd been there for a couple weeks. Jason Marquis and JD Drew left, and in came this guy. Or no, in JD Drew got traded, in came Marquis and this guy. And my wife and I are there, and you're talking about autographs. You can get autographs from all kind of stuff there. And we had all the players. We had Matheny, we had Renneria, got a Lou Brock's autograph. My wife actually got Albert's autograph on a ball. I treasure it. It's sitting in my thing. She handed it to him. He signed it. He only signed for girls and kids. No
Sure.
man. If you're a man there, he wouldn't sign it because he figured you're going to go sell it, which it probably would have. So we still have that ball. It's a very treasured item. But there was this kid. We were walking, and when you're a spring training, you can walk by the fences and you see these players. And I go, "Hey, that's the new guy." And Trish goes, "What do you mean new guy?" And I go, "That's the new guy. That's that Wayne and what Adam Wayne something." So I said, "Hey," and he came over to the fence to my wife and I. And I go, "Hey, will you sign my ball?" And he goes, "You don't want me to sign your ball." And I go, "Sure I do," because he was kind of joking with us, right? Nice guy. And I handed the ball to him, and he got ready to sign it. And there's 2 places to sign a ball, right? You sign it on the edge or the sweet spot. Now, the sweet spot is reserved for managers, technically. That's a baseball tradition.
Yeah.
But if there's no manager around, you can ask them to sign it. And I said, hey, man, will you hit the sweet spot on this? And he goes, man, I'm not even in the majors yet. And I go, I got a good feeling about you. And he goes, all right. Wayno signed the ball on the sweet spot for me. It sits right over there next to my Albert signature. Is the greatest story ever that he
That
had been with
is
the Cardinals
sick.
like 3 weeks. He didn't even break with the club. Remember, he didn't come up till
No,
06.
he was a close. I mean, he was yeah, like he was long relief or whatever. Like, I mean, he
Yeah,
ended up
he was a
closing in the
starter,
playoffs.
and
But like,
he didn't even come in till 06. That was 04. I'm 2 years
well,
early.
right, yeah. So
So when
but
he
like,
came
yeah,
up,
he
I'm like,
wasn't
that's
even.
the guy. Trish is like, yeah, he's tall and skinny.
That's what I'm excited about, right?
Years later, you talk about a wild situation to say, yeah, we met him, talked to him. I got a good story. So I'm excited for you. I'm excited for your son, even though he's not going to remember much of it.
No,
My kids in 2004 were not even born yet. It was just Trish and I. And
yeah,
Nicole's going to have fun. So really cool, man. I'm excited for you. But hey, we're not here to just talk about baseball. We got some
no, not
football stuff.
yet.
And for you fans out there, we're going to talk a little bit about what's coming over the coming weeks. Brandon, you want to kind of jump on that a little bit and talk a little bit about how we're going to break down the next 8 weeks or 6 weeks before the draft?
Yeah. So tonight we'll talk a little bit about the combine that just happened and kind of some of the highlights and start setting up what we're gonna do between now and the draft. And the idea is that Nate and I are gonna kind of split up the teams. Each division. Take a couple of them and then come back with some research on it and go, here's where I think we're going. Here's what they need. Here's what they don't need. Here's the kind of players that should be available around their pick. And the other guy will be able to kind of ask the question, be the audience, go, okay, hey, I haven't looked at this team close. I got some questions. Here they are. And we'll kind of go back and forth and cover all the teams between now and like probably 2 weeks before the draft. And then
Yeah, two.
we'll mock up some draft and go into the draft, having covered all the teams, put together where we think some guys are going to fall and get everybody prepared from our viewpoint on, what kind of the highest probability stuff is going to go.
Yeah, that's fantastic. And we're going to try to talk to Sandman and Eric about potentially putting a game out there for you guys to follow along with us. That would be fun.
Yeah.
We'll see if we can do that. But I think the ultimate goal, right? We have to have a goal here. This is about sports gambling. This is about the NFL and gambling. And so one of the things, Brandon, that you and I talked about several times starting in week 17 through the playoffs is that we need a better number system. We need a better
Uh-huh.
way to measure metrics so when we get into the system in the season, our numbers are accurate. So we have two areas of weakness that we talked about and we want to improve upon. So we're going to set some goals, right? Our goal is to, for the first 4 weeks of the season, we want to improve our numbers and our methodology around sports betting so that we can be better at Survivor, so that we can be better at elimination pools, guillotine pools, and so that we can be better overall with just our straight picks against the spread, potentially
Uh-huh.
leaking into Ben Harper and some of those things. To do that, we're going to actually attack this through preparing in the draft, going through looking and while we're going to be doing this information and talking with you guys about it, doing our homework, we're also going to discuss free agency some. What players are moving, who's going where, who's going here. We may only have a 15-minute segment on a division, but we may spend another 10 or 15 on some free agency moves or something like that throughout the season. We'll then get into the summer and ideally break down some mini camps, some programs like that, with it all ramping up to where we start talking about betting models and how this is going to play out for the first 4 weeks of the season. We also are going to try to figure out, and I don't know if we can get it done or not, but we want to try to figure out how we can be stronger weeks 15, 16, 17, 18 into the playoffs, because that's where data gets screwed up. And it kind of
Uh-huh.
messed with us a little bit this year. And we didn't do bad in our picks. Both of us ended up okay at the end of the season, but maybe the data wasn't there as well. And so that's another area that we're going to try to focus on and talk with whoever wants to listen to us about it.
Yeah.
So if you want to know what our goal is to be stronger betters at the beginning of the season, at the end of the season, because I think we would both agree we're pretty good through the sweet spot. It's the heart of the season's not as difficult for us, which is probably true for a lot of gamblers. But
Yeah.
how do we improve in those areas to make our overall win records better for the whole season?
Yeah. Yeah. We have to get over that hump of the transition between how do we get the season started, and then
Yeah.
when that last chunk of the season happens where teams start to fall off because they've been eliminated and other teams are starting to try to set themselves up for the playoffs. How do we tease that out and effectively turn it into a line so that we can compare it to what, Vegas is using? How do we get an edge on that? In the middle of the
Yeah.
season, when most everybody is going at full speed, you have some data to play with. And, most everybody, you always have your couple of teams that perennially pick at the top of the draft here that by week 8, their season's shot, and it is what it is. But the vast majority of the teams are doing what they need to do. And I think, it honestly, it's the beginning of the season. That's the key. If you start off and you get yourself a head start, you can figure out those last couple of weeks. You
Yep.
can limit how much you're risking on those weeks. In a lot of the games, we kind of have a separate game where every week you're leveraging your position. But, other places we can toggle down and say, hey, there's too much variance here. Let's bring down, the per bet average so that, we're not risking things on stuff that's coin flip. And that's really what it comes down to. Everybody can bet coin flips, but we got to figure out how to get to that, 54%.
Exactly. So I think that's what you're going to see coming from us. So let's talk a little bit, Brandon. Here's our initial first round draft order. And what jumps off the page is that there's a couple of teams that are in really good positioning that have multiple picks. The Cowboys side by side there jump off the page at me, of course. But the
Sure.
Browns have multiple picks, and the Rams have multiple picks, and the Jets have
Well,
multiple picks.
do you know the Rams no longer have multiple picks?
What happened there?
This afternoon,
Oh,
the
yes.
Rams traded the 29th pick to the Chiefs, along with 3 other picks for Trent McDuffie. So Snead is back on his bullshit. We're back
Yep.
on F them picks. And I guess
Yep.
back on isn't even really fair because I saw an infographic. The only, they've got Atlanta's pick at 13, but the
Yep.
only player that they've taken with their own pick in the first round in the last decade is Jared Verse. The
Oh,
other
man.
9 years, they traded their first round pick. So he's right back on his horse. Hey, I got this Atlanta pick. A lot of people think this is where they're going to be looking for picking up somebody to take over for Stafford when he sails off into the sunset. And this is kind of pointing in that direction of, hey, we're gonna get all in. Let's get some defensive help to help, support Stafford and see if we can get him over the hump for a golden Super Bowl for him. It seems like the first step. It makes me kind of wonder if the Chiefs are kind of leaning towards something. Maybe Mahomes isn't going to be ready for week 1. Hey, let's go get somebody for some of our top players. I don't know. I don't know if I don't know if that's an awesome sign for the Chiefs or not. They're already picking at 9, so they're going to be able to get somebody good. They got, I think, if I'm not mistaken, they got a 3rd round for next year along with the 29th pick. And I think they got the 5th and the 6th round from the Rams this year. So they're stacking up picks to grab some guys. And it does kind of make me wonder when you start selling off Pro Bowl cornerbacks if that is a bad omen for everybody being raring to go week 1.
Yeah, I trust me. I like Pro Bowl cornerbacks. I think that franchises can be built on it. To start with, on the Chiefs side, I actually don't think it's a bad move to have 2 first-round picks this year. From where they're at, they have more need to protect Patrick. So if
Without a doubt.
they can figure out how to go O-line in a way, or I think there's a tight end that jumps off the board in there too, to replace Kelsey. Noah Gray's fine, but I think ultimately the key
That
needs
is
to
an
be
interesting point. Back to something that we were talking about pre-meeting that we'll talk about here in a minute. There is actually somebody that kind of jumps off the page there.
yeah,
So that I hadn't really connected the dots there. That's kind of an interesting way to look at it. That maybe one of these picks here will line up well with backfilling Kelsey's eventual retirement. I'm kind of
yeah,
surprised he's planning on coming back for this year.
yeah.
I have to assume that this is the last year, maybe one more year. I don't know how long you can keep
Yeah.
taking hits like that.
I don't know. But I think that there's a little bit of strategy there. I think it's A, protect Holmes, and B, elite tight ends have to be drafted. They don't pop up in free agency very often.
No, because the way that the salaries for tight ends go, if you get the right one, you don't have to break the bank to keep them
That's
with
right.
the team. So yeah,
That's
I
right.
think, we start looking at who might be jumping off the page for everyone coming out of the combine. And that might be a guy to come in, bring in, sit behind Kelsey, get some of this feel, that magic of, hey, I can feel where the defense is, and I can figure out how to kind of sit down in between people, which is really what tight end has turned into. Unless you're just, you know, a freak athlete, it's all about finding your space and having great hands.
Being a safety valve for the quarterback.
Yeah, absolutely.
So we'll talk about that tight end here in just a minute. But for the Rams' perspective on this trade, I think it's interesting to note that I think they feel they are a shutdown corner away and stopping Smith and Jigba twice a year and potentially 3 times in the playoffs to getting to the Super Bowl.
It is pretty on the nose, right? That,
Yeah,
to be a couple of defensive stops away from probably winning the Super Bowl, right? In hindsight,
yeah,
you know, you the AFC didn't really end up panning out if
yep.
you could rush the quarterback, which
The
the
Rams
Rams
can.
didn't really have the problem doing that. They had
No,
the problem that when the rush didn't get home, that the defensive backs would get burnt. So it does seem, as much as, um, I it's a weird thing with the Rams, right? That, I never took a team. I was, you know, 10 years old by the time the Rams came to St. Louis. I obviously enjoyed when we had the greatest show on turf, but as soon as they left, I just went like, oh, okay, fair enough. They weren't here when I was born, then they're gone. But
yeah,
Les Snead, as fun as it is to say his name, I wouldn't be horribly crushed by something bad happening to him, since he spent, 5 years lying to all the people in St. Louis, along with Kroenke. So, but you gotta, you know, give it up to a guy when he does his thing. When you go, hey, I'm just gonna trade my first round draft pick for a decade, and you're perennially in the playoffs, competing for Super Bowls. The guy's successful at what he does, as
yeah.
much as, we'd like to run him out of another town if we got a shot at it. But
Oh, yeah,
this seems like, that they get done and they go, where was the hole? And they go, right there. And they go, okay, well, I'll just go trade a first round draft pick for a guy that'll close that hole.
yeah.
So it does sound like that was exactly what he ended up doing.
And that is a philosophy though. I mean, honestly, if you look at first round draft picks and we were looking at them, even the first 1 or 2 picks can tend to be busts. We were just having this conversation, and if you look at the last several picks, I mean, they've done okay recently. Cam Ward's okay, Caleb's coming on, Bryce Young, jury's still out a
Maybe.
little bit.
Yeah.
Trayvon Walker, good ball player, maybe a
Yeah.
reach that spot. T-Law, Burrow, Kyler Murray's just getting released now. Baker's been on a couple teams. Myles Garrett's obviously a beast. And then we get
Yeah.
into golf and you get a little bit older. But, looking at a lot of these number ones, they're fine. But after that, and you start talking about who else was drafted, that's another thing we took a look at. And some of the names aren't impressive in pick 5, 6, 7, pick 11, 12, 13, pick 18, 19, 20, pick 27, 28, 29. They're just guys that, you're hopeful that they're deserving of the first round status. But if you look at the first round, and I think this might be something we need to look at, if 32 picks, what is the percentage of Hall of Famers? What is the percentage of Pro Bowlers? What is the percentage of out of the league in 5 years kind of guys? And
Uh-huh.
realistically, my guess is you're probably hitting 60% of the time. And he's going, well, why wouldn't I just go pay for a guy that's already hit?
Well, and
And
especially
then
if
I take the risk
internally
out of it.
they're looking at it and going, maybe that's not our strong suit.
Yeah.
Like when you don't make a first round pick, Jared Verse kind of pushes against that because the guy shows right up and is filling, 80% of Aaron Donald's shoes, like he's not an anomaly like Donald is, but he's doing his job for being a
And,
first
and
round pick.
arguably picks 25, 32. You're on a borderline second rounder anyway.
Well, yeah. And that's the game is that, one of the things that stood out to me from watching the combine is there is such a slim margin between all these guys. You
Yeah.
have to have a philosophy that goes, these are the very specific qualities we are looking for at each one of these positions on our team. And you can't just go, hey, you can't do what the Raiders do. Let me just grab the fastest guy on the board and just draft him. Because sometimes it works. And then sometimes being the fastest guy on the board means you like to go fast in your car. And then you don't get to play football no more.
Oh, good call. Yep.
Well, it's just one of those things, like
Well,
you
and to
start
your point,
it.
right? Fastest guy on the board. If you look at the page, I put the 40-yard dashes up for this year's combine. These are the top 15 players, and they're separated by a tenth of a second.
Yeah. Now I am
Literally. Or two.
pretty excited when I saw our quarterback from Mizzou, run the 6th fastest time.
Yeah.
So that could be some fun.
Yeah.
I always like to be sitting there half watching the combine and see Mizzou's logo pop up and then go, oh wait, this guy's flying. So that's cool. That'll be interesting to see where he ends up going. But yeah, like it's awesome to watch. But the real trick, and I understand that you can't televise this, but it would be infinitely more useful to be able to see them get interviewed.
Oh, yeah.
By the teams.
Oh, yeah.
Especially the successful teams.
Exactly.
Because it would almost be as interesting to watch what the Patriots ask a player in the interviews and the Jets ask their players in their interviews and go, oh, I see why this is working out the way it is. Like, I tend to assume that there is a pretty wide swath on both the interviewer and the interviewee side of these conversations. And I get it. You don't want other teams to know who you're talking to, what you're talking to them about, all that sort of stuff. You just want some metrics on the page to compare guys by. But, if you enjoy, football talk, Todd McShay's out there doing all kinds of draft talk. And, his thing is let me round up all the GMs the week of the combine and talk to them about their process. And one of the questions that he asks every one of them is, hey, when you get to draft night, how many players are you going to have on your draft board? And it seems that the more successful teams, that number is getting smaller and smaller every year when he
Right.
talks to them. That these teams are figuring out how to get more and more succinct into both which players do we like and understanding where they're going to fall. So you don't just go, hey, I'm ranking the top 300 players because boy, I'm picking at 27, but I hope the guy at 16 falls to me. You just go, I don't need to worry about that. I need, 6-ish players in my range in the first round, and then 6-ish players in the second round, and understand who are going to fall in those ranges and what are the qualities that we want on our team where we're going to get to pick. And unfortunately, you can sit and watch 4 days of the combine like I did, and you walk away going, hey, there's a couple of interesting things to glean, but I'd much rather see these guys talk. And
Yeah.
there's just no way where to really do that.
Yeah, no, we won't see that. You're right. There's proprietary information in there. There's things that, they don't want to know what kind of questions they're being asked. And there's also the protection for the player in there as well, because a lot of this personal
Right.
information that they're asking. And,
Yeah.
the teams that do their best at that are clearly winning more frequently. It's not a surprise that you see the Jets and the Browns and the Cardinals and, oddly enough, the Titans kind of hanging out over in that first column of this row
Yeah.
significantly every year. It's not a
Uh-huh.
surprise that you see the Patriots and the Rams and the 49ers and the Bills and usually the Chiefs, but there are things that happen hanging out on the far right side, and then always in the middle are the same cast of characters. That would be probably another thing that would be interesting to look at is average draft position for the last 20 years for
Yeah.
these teams, because that's going to tell you quite a bit about their process and their success rates, because there are teams that win at this. Like I look at a team right now like the Giants. I think they won the draft the last 2 years, but their coaching staff might have let them down a little bit. They had an injury or two, tough division, whatever. They're still hanging on that left column. Throw Harbaugh into the mix. Let him and his talent evaluators take a look at this based on the foundation they already have with Dart, Scadaboo, Abdul Carter, Thibodeau. They've got two wide
Neighbors.
receivers. They got
Yeah.
Neighbors. They got Jalen Hyatt. They've got some pieces there that are very soon going to push them from the first column to the third and the fourth column.
Yeah, they
Uh,
just have to have a game plan.
Arguably, the Cardinals are going to be over there drafting in the first 5 picks for the next 2 years. Let's talk a little bit the number one pick this year, the Raiders. I could argue, I could find a way to say that the Raiders are probably going to be drafting in that first column again next year, but the pieces of the puzzle are coming together for them. They've got two stellar tight ends. They've got a nice running back. We think Mendoza's the man, right? We think that if he shows up and does his thing, if he can execute like Peyton Manning, he definitely has the brain power of Peyton Manning. Um, Executing is a whole nother story, right? Being able to translate it at the pro level. But he definitely is a well thought out kid, well spoken kid, and probably would help Raider Nation a lot. They've got Max Crosby. They add a couple of players through the draft, and all of a sudden the Raiders are on the upswing. Now, external circumstances say they're playing in one of the toughest divisions in football, which is why
Yeah.
they may stay over there for another year. But, I think there's a lot of positives there. Take a guy like Mendoza is who all the pundits, I think it's pretty much, I mean, he's going to the Raiders. Does anybody have any doubts that that is going to be the number one pick in your?
No, I don't hear that. I mean, I know that, you know, it's starting to with some of the guys that are more contrarian are starting to circle around to, like, how much have we really looked at this?
Yeah.
But I don't get any inkling that there's any reporting that the Raiders are starting to think about it. I just think, you know, it's a big risk when when you have that number one pick and you want to pull the trigger on a quarterback, and it's a quarterback that is from a unconventional path. The counter guys, you start to go, I don't know, maybe. But here's the problem: is that the Raiders aren't any good at developing quarterbacks.
No.
So, when we talk about this, one of the things that jumped out to me is when you watch all, like, everybody got faster, they're jumping higher, they're benching more. Like, the pockets at the top of these are not, hey, one guy comes out and runs a crazy 40-yard dash, and then there's a big cluster, a tenth of a second later. It's, we just have a pack of guys that look like they're running downhill on the 40-yard dash.
Right.
And, we've got one of the tight ends broke the vertical jump record this year. Our guy
Let's talk
from
about your tight end. I know you like this guy.
Okay. So my guy that, in my guy, whatever. But the point being that our dude, Kenyon Sadiq, coming out of, ran a sub 4.40 and then was number 2 in the vertical, number 2 in the broad jump, and number 2 in bench press for tight ends.
Yeah.
So this is a guy that jumps off my page that goes, we have this history of tight ends converting to the NFL more successfully than basically any position outside of offensive line, right? Like, when you have an elite offensive lineman, we have plenty of those stories of those guys just getting drafted in the NFL and then spending 18 years just pancake blocking dudes into the earth.
Yeah.
And we're getting real close to tight ends catching up to that. A dude's awesome in college. He shows out well. He gets drafted, and then he's just good.
Yeah.
And he just plays well. And so when somebody shows up and does something like that and literally, like, breaks a record for one of the events, you go, now where can he fit? Where does this make sense? And when you have a couple of picks in here for teams that have historically been good with tight ends, you go, maybe this guy catches a break.
Yeah.
And goes to a really good team. Doesn't, Bowers, elite tight end, got grabbed by the Raiders. He's going to be onto his second contract before they're good. He will have spent 3 or 4 years with dudes beating the hell out of him before he has a chance to play in the playoffs. That's unfortunate. This year, you've got a handful of these teams that you got: the Chiefs, the Bengals, the Cowboys, the Ravens, all in that second column that go, what are they looking for? We have teams that, have historically won a lot of games and had down years, and now you got somebody that has a high probability of at least a high floor. And then you have the opportunity to grab him and stash him on one of these teams that are, in the playoffs plenty compared to the other teams that are normally picking in the, 8 to 17 range. So that was one that jumped out at me, to go, we're going to have to watch real close and see, between the two of us as we go through these teams, where this might go, because that can be a game breaker of a pick.
Absolutely. I think it's critical, and I think it's outstanding. So Brandon, the analysis you gave is outstanding, and that's kind of what we're going to go for here. So if you're interested in the draft, if you're interested in this part of football, if you want to continue following with Sandman and St. Louis Syndicate, this is what we're going to talk about for the next few weeks. We're not going to have our hour and 20-minute programs. It'll be just like this, between 20 and 40 minutes, where you can hop in, learn a little bit, and move on. So really, we'd like to see you join us during this time frame. We'd love to see you out here and spending some time with us. We'll talk a little baseball. We'll probably talk a little basketball, but at the end of the day, we're going to try to give you good breakdowns of what's coming up in the draft and how that's going to translate into success in the pools. Ben Harper, Survivor, all of them that
Super
we run
contest.
into. All
Yeah.
contests, super contests, all of them. So that's
Yeah.
the goal. And then maybe, just maybe, if you guys submit all of your requests to Bill Sanders at sandman.com, maybe we can get a game out of this and we can have a little fun in the process and win some money.
Oh,
so
yeah.
that's the goal. So, Brandon, anything before we wrap?
No. I hope everybody's having a great spring. And if you've got yourself a baseball team, hopefully you are excited about the start of the season.
I'm excited. I don't know about everybody. The one thing that if the Cardinals can't win, at least we can root against the Cubs.
Always root for the
Always root against
Cardinals
the Cubs.
and whoever's playing the Cubbies.
Yep. All right, guys. Well, hey, we're the St. Louis Syndicate. I'm Nate. He's Brandon. You guys have an outstanding week. We'll see you next week.
Cheers.